All right, welcome everyone. Good evening. We are here. We're really honored to be joined tonight by Ben Pauling. So, he is the writer and the director of an upcoming film called Dream. And we're really excited to talk about it because it is going to expose and depict child trafficking for people in a really impactful way. And of course, we want to support this message because awareness is a huge part of what we do and our mission to not only expose what's going on with child trafficking, but let people know how they can join the fight. So, Ben, thank you so much for being here. It's so nice to meet you. And thank you for doing this project and the work you guys have put into it. I know it's a lot.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me, Kim, and I appreciate all the work you guys are doing as well.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you reached out to us. For those who don't know, we're not especially affiliated with Ben and his project, but we always want to support these types of specifically films and exposure pieces. But anyone who's really in the fight and doing good things is obviously something we celebrate. And in our opinion, something we should all get behind and support because, as we'll unpack for you later, there's a lot of intentional opposition to this message. So we really are reliant on people that are willing to talk about this, and it's kind of crazy, but a lot of people are not willing to talk about this or face this dark reality. So let's talk about this project. But can you give us just a brief introduction, just to summarize about you, who you are, and how you got into this project?
Yeah, so it kind of goes back to for me. I've always had a heart to want to serve people and to want to use whatever talents, whatever gifts I have to bless people and to make a difference. And so in 2020, August of 2020, I had this dream, and in the dream I was standing at the gate of this industrial warehouse, and this blacked out windows just kind of haunted me with just this warehouse is uh, just the essence of what I knew was going on in there was beyond what just seemed like a normal business. And as a man pulled up in a mysterious vehicle, and he gets out and he starts questioning me, I start to kind of piece together that there's something going on here that's more than just business as usual. And in my heart, I woke up from this dream, and I just had a real sense of a cry of these children. And it really moved me in a unique way that I never really had thought about. I'd seen the little clips, and I'd seen the articles online of children being rescued, and obviously with the subject of human trafficking, but I uh, never really felt what it was like for one of these children. And when I woke up in the darkness of my room, and that night, I for the first time in my life, I felt the fear of what these children must be living in, and the silence that the world has towards it, you know. And so that inspired me to begin with writing a short film that's now become a feature length movie.
That's amazing. That's an incredible
Yeah,
story. Have you, I guess, beyond that sort of God given passion or inspiration,
yeah.
have there been instances in your life or maybe your career that you've been exposed to some aspect of human trafficking? Or what was your level of awareness like before that dream?
Yeah, when I look back now, it was in hindsight, it was you know talked about a lot kind of around me. And actually, when I was probably 10 or 11 years old, my dad was a worship leader at a several different churches, one of them being a gospel church that was out of this high school. And the day prior to service, he was attending this event that was speaking on this issue with human trafficking and what to do when you see someone that might be suspicious, or you might see someone that looks endangered, with a number to call, and how to do something about it. And so the very next day, right in the middle of service, a distraught woman runs into the high school auditorium, and beelines it for the pasture during worship. And the pastor brings her over and just immediately is like, John, like, what was that number? My dad's name's John. What was that number you had that you just said you went to that event to? And so they knew what to do. They had just been, equipped with the knowledge and how to handle the situation. They end up calling the cops. They get this girl rescued, and they rescue like 7 other women that were chained up nearby in a house. And so I had heard it in earshot with stories like this, and you know other stories I'd see online. But it really, like with many people, it's talked about a lot, but it doesn't really affect you until it touches your heart for some miraculous reason.
Yeah, absolutely. That's incredible. So,
Yeah.
we're talking about, for those just joining us, welcome. So, for those who don't know, Veterans for Child Rescue is a nonprofit. We're based in the US, and our mission is to expose and eradicate child trafficking in the USA. So, if you're new here, welcome, and we're really glad you're here. If you don't know about us or our mission, please check out our website. The way we raise awareness is not only by education and awareness content and prevention information, it's also by making as much noise as we can, not only in media interviews, in documentaries like our documentary Contraland, but projects like this, what Ben Pauling is working on with this film. Sometimes people need to be entertained. Sometimes the depiction needs to be more appealing to people than the reality of what it is. And I don't mean by any means that that's a bad thing. What I'm getting at here is, while there are counter trafficking operations that we do, while we do arrest bad guys and put them behind bars with a 100% conviction rate in the USA, the topic of awareness may be lost on some if you're not familiar with this criminal enterprise, or the fact that awareness is what reduces the predator's ability to operate. So even if we dramatize it a little in these films, the goal here is to raise the public's awareness so that everyone walking around in public can be more aware, can know what to look for, that it can be present in people's mind. Because, as I'm sure Ben can attest to, there are a lot of people who may still think that child trafficking is just a theory, and or that it's not happening in the USA. They think it's a far, far away problem, but they're not aware that it may be happening right in front of them in their own community to children they know right now. So, telling and showing stories like this is one way that can help people really connect with the issue in a more personal way that brings it close to home. So, Ben, again, I want to thank you for what you're doing, and I
Yeah.
want to continue talking about this dream film. But for everyone in the comments, if you want resources on what to look for, on what child trafficking is, on how you can get involved, please do check out our website, because we have a ton of free resources, and it's really important that you read it and that you share this information. So, Ben, tell us more about the film. And if you're able to play the trailer, we would love to show the trailer, but tell us what the story is about and how that story came to be. Earlier, he told us he had a dream that really impacted him. How did the rest of the story unfold for you?
Yeah. So, first, I'd like to say, what you're just saying, which is, it's hard sometimes for people to want to go into a film that has to do with this subject matter and to make it more appealing. But really, for me, at the end of the day, it's not even about a movie. It's not about this film. It's not about that. That's just the tools and the calling that we have and a mandate to do this. But really, it's deeper than just a movie. And a lot of people can get lost on that fact that, oh, it's a movie, so how is that going to help child trafficking? I don't see the correlation. What people don't really realize is that a lot of these operations, like what you guys are doing, and a lot of these great, no one's hearing about it, no one's talking about it, and no one is giving voice to that. You're not seeing it on the news. And so our goal is to sound the trumpets and to do that in the ways that we're gifted and we're capable to do. And the reality is that stories are the most translatable and powerful thing throughout history of how people can change the way they think, how people can be moved and pick up their swords really, and stories translate, even if you have them in different language, they translate across all all colors, all nationalities, all borders, and it's what we're desperately in lack of right now in our culture, in our world, to have good stories brought forth to amplify truth, to amplify light, to fight. I can't think of a more important subject to go spend a year making a film on and to pour money into than one that would reach audiences with something that people need to hear. And I can't think of anything that people need to hear that they're not willing to hear more than this. And so that's kind of where the heart of the story comes from. The story itself has to do with a young man whose sister actually goes missing at a local motorcycle race event, and just throughout the night leaves out of eyesight and is never to be found. And 3 years pass, and nothing has taken place, and no restitution has been made. And he one night has a dream where he wakes up from this dream where he was much like the dream I just told you I actually had. And after having this dream, he's really shook, and he wants to find this place, this warehouse, this mysterious industrial road where he found himself, and this man that's obviously having to do. He thinks it has something to do with his sister, and so he goes and he drives around, and after searching endlessly, he ends up finding this place, and the very encounter from his dream takes place with this man, and totally blown away, he goes to police. He doesn't exactly know what to say to them because he's already kind of done some things in the past now in search for her that have kind of made it to where his credibility isn't as strong. But he's pretty much essentially left with the reality of, you know, in this particular circumstance, you got a gated warehouse, you got a man that was in, just pretty much doing nothing nefarious, just your own hunch of what you think a place is, and so they wouldn't be able to do anything without a warrant. And so he and his friends that were there with him that night when she went missing decide to take matters into their own hands and not wait for that, and they decide to break into this place during the night, and what unfolds ends up being the action and the drama of the film.
Mm, very interesting. So, out of curiosity, when you pitch this idea to others in the film industry, this is a pretty broad question, but what was the general response from the majority of people, or maybe the top main responses you received?
Yeah, so right from the inception, actually, as a short film, even we got some really, really good responses, and really some kind of impressive actors that wanted to come on board and tell the story. And that kind of turned into us deciding to make it into a feature film. And weeks within me finishing the latest draft on writing it, I had an Academy Award-winning actor that I was talking to, and a lot of just great response from the actual people that are the creatives when it came to the story. And then from there, we started building the film. We had Hollywood producers on board. We had traditional financing set up. We were getting ready to make the film, just a typical secular, route. And I was always kind of blown away that was kind of seeming like where it was going. And moments before things were really locked in and set in, different things started taking place where people kind of started backing out and walk. And then there were things that would pop up in conversations of maybe we could just change the child trafficking to drug trafficking. And I started to notice that when it comes to these types of stories, that people don't want to have their names associated with what that might bring upon them perception wise, especially in the media, and how this is being conveyed. I think that's why you're not seeing any stories about this. You're seeing stories over and over about military movies, and you're seeing stories about drug cartels, and all of these films that they don't have any problem just continuing to talk about, and but no one really wants to just directly hit this subject on the head. And I heard similar stories actually just a couple of days ago from the new film that's about to be released called Sound of Freedom. and they had similar things. I mean, Jim Caviezel was the only one willing to take that mantle on, and you could see how that has been like a burden for him, and really a very big responsibility and a lot of heat that he's taken for taking that on. And so it makes sense now in hindsight why, you know, that didn't end up. And I've heard, other things too that I probably can't speak on publicly, but yeah, it's a common story, and so our goal is to squash that, and to change that, not leave it in their hands anymore.
Yeah, that's incredible. We see this all the time. Even some of those people watching can attest to this, that there's a lot of people who are unwilling to face this. There's a lot of people who don't want to be aware. They do this and they hope that someone else is taking care of it, that the problem's not real. It'd be more comfortable for them if this was just a theory. It'd be more comfortable for them if they could convince themselves that we're just out here asking for money because we don't have anything better to do, instead of we're out here on the front lines actually doing the work and asking people to join us in being part of the solution. So as a survivor of child trafficking,
Wow.
I love the fact that there are people that are starting to become aware, and I celebrate the people that are actually willing to do something. I know that everyone can do something to be part of the solution, but there's a lot of people who say save the children, they say they care, and at the end of the day, not a lot of people are leading by example. Not a lot of people are willing to get their hands dirty or join the fight in a meaningful way. And I'm also saying this as someone who is on the front lines, in addition to the work I do with Veterans for Child Rescue behind the scenes. I've been on 2 counter trafficking operations in the USA in the last few months here in Texas. Now, I'm not asking everyone to see what I've seen. I'm not asking everyone to try to unsee what I can't unsee. And I'm not asking everyone to get their hands dirty. But what we are asking people is to be aware. That's step 1. Awareness means acknowledgement. Awareness means this is real. This is not a theory. This is something we should acknowledge. But step 2 is taking action. Now, we can't take action without awareness. So awareness is a very important first step, but it's important that beyond the acknowledgement of its existence, we are then willing to actually put our money where our mouth is, so to speak, or do something. And I know for a fact that everyone can do something to be part of the solution. I say this because, of course, as a volunteer in this organization, I interface with a lot of people that say, yeah, but what about this other bad thing? Or, well, what are you doing about this very bad things? Or what you're doing is never enough because this problem is too bad. There's too much evil. Or what you're doing isn't enough until they close the borders, the politicians, X, Y, and Z, and all these external factors. As a child trafficking survivor, I can look people in the eyes and let them know that making a difference for one child matters. For 100 children, for 1,000 children, reducing the predator's ability to operate matters. Awareness matters. And as someone who, as a child, witnessed hundreds of thousands of adults walk by me, drive by me, keep going, and not one person. Long story short, I was born and raised overseas. I'm an American child that was trafficked overseas, but for 4 years of my childhood, I was in Houston, Texas, in Harris County, which is, by the way, one of the epicenters of human trafficking in the entire nation. During that 4-year period that I was on the streets, I was in restaurants, I was in shopping malls, I was in parking lots, I was in people's houses, I was in famous landmarks, George R. Brown Convention Center, Astrodome, etc. Not one adult had the awareness to stop and acknowledge that a child is probably not okay and ask questions. Are you okay? Where are you? Where are your parents? What are you doing? Why are you collecting money? Where are you going to school? That's just one of many examples of the impact that awareness could and should have, the difference it could have made. Now, it's a complicated story, but if nothing else, it could have meant that I spent less time on the streets. It could have meant that the tens of thousands of other children I grew up with, it could have meant we were rescued. It could have meant that our stories ended sooner than it did. Now, I escaped when I was 20 years old, but I need people to understand that most children don't escape. Most children are never rescued. In fact, statistically, less than 1% of children are ever rescued. So, for those thinking this problem is too large to solve, for those thinking we're talking about things we don't know personally, for those assuming that we're talking without actions or showing, and for those who think that little old them can't do enough to make a difference, let me just shatter that false narrative right here, right now. And let me also hopefully spread a uniting, empowering message that if little old me can be out here facing this darkness and unpacking my trauma in order for strangers to understand that this is not a theory and that there are very actionable ways that all of us can get involved and take action, join us. What we're asking is for us all to unite around this topic of protecting children. To your earlier point, I don't think there is a better cause for people to rally around. So, thank you again, everyone who's listening. And Ben, I know not a lot of people understand the impact of the project that you're involved with, but as someone who gets it, I want to personally thank you from the bottom of my heart, not only for having the courage, but for understanding the impact of awareness.
Wow. Yeah. I I thank you as well, just for your courage and your endurance to be able to just still be fighting here today, given everything that's taken place. And man, I just think that's exactly it. You know, that is exactly the heart. Is if one child can be saved by this, then you know, then that's enough. But yeah, the reality is that, yeah, there's less than 1%. So I think a lot of people think that, oh, well, other people are taking care of that, and it's just it's not that kind of fight. It's
Yeah.
not a fight that you can leave, that we can afford to lose or cower away from when we're talking about children here. And we all are going to be held accountable for what we are able to do and what we're given knowledge of. And yeah, there's situations where in the past I'd seen maybe something. I wonder, when people start to become aware that it's very, very much more common than they realize, and that it's like, it's been said that it's surpassed the drug trade. And well, if you think drugs are common, then you better think that it's probably not just a hunch. If you see something suspicious, and you should do something about it. And even if you're wrong, it's worth being wrong, if you are wrong in this, because to be right is to save someone's life, is to save that child's life. And so, yeah, that is the heart, and that is the mission here, and that is something we're not going to give up on.
1000%. Thank you. So, I'm still curious because to me, this is a rhetorical question only because I am in this fight and we see the intentional opposition on a daily basis. Without unpacking this from my perspective, I would love to learn from your perspective, specifically in the film industry. My understanding is this is an independent film. Is that right?
Correct. Yes.
Now, I'm going to ask a question that I understand the answer to, but I want us to unpack it. Why is it that a film of this topic, which could be quite entertaining, and by the way, based on a true story, why is it that a large film company wouldn't want to feature it, or that people may not support this in the film industry at large?
Because they're involved in it.
I said the quiet part out
Because Yeah, because there's many people, and I think, we've all heard of the child stars and what happens to them. But when you realize why it happens to them, it's because they're part of this industry. It's not just because they're, on a certain network. It's because, um, you're talking about the most influential and powerful industry in, the world, when it comes to influencing culture and influencing even, politics and everything. And so, there are always going to be those people in power. There's going to be good people. There's going to be people trying to fight for truth and justice, but there's also going to be people that you won't hear about, that are behind the scenes, that are doing these things. And many people are incapable of the courage to be able to stand up against that, because they might lose their job or their career. And it's something that I just, we could have easily, if this was about making a movie, if this was about, having a big career in Hollywood, we could have easily, already done that. Especially with this film, we had, Academy Award winning actor, that was interested. We had Golden Globe just recent Golden Globe winning, Emmy winning actor that was championing it, bringing it to his agency. No one wanted to touch a story like this, and the people that would be willing wanted us to compromise in certain ways we just weren't willing to compromise on. And we certainly weren't willing to hand it over to some, one of the things that was said is, man, you could get, you could get the top director in Hollywood to direct this film, naively saying that. But the reality is we wouldn't leave that up to selling it to someone, to leave it in the hands of people that it honestly would probably just end up on the shelf with. And so yeah, this is something that we know that it's going to take people listening here, and people like you, and people that care, to bring this story out to the light, and bring it to light of day, to where other people can see it. But it's not going to be something that can be left up to a few gatekeepers in an industry that's involved in the very thing that we're talking about.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Earlier we were talking about awareness and those who don't want to be aware. There's another category of people that truly believe that just because they don't see this topic being talked about in the headlines, in national media, or our politicians, or a lot of other people who should be using our money to protect and serve we the people, that for whatever reason, I'm just being sarcastic here because I can't not, but are too busy to even talk about protecting children. So I'm just going to touch on this real quick because it's an entirely separate additional conversation. But here's a rhetorical question. Which politicians have you guys in the comments heard about talking about protecting children? Which politicians have made a sound with their mouth to talk about child trafficking in the USA? I'm not even asking for action or the aftermath or then what happened. I'm saying who even has the courage to talk about it? It's a rhetorical question because it's unfortunately almost none, or statistically irrelevant. Now, the next rhetorical question would be which media outlets, and while there has been some coverage here and there, it's really not talked about. So let me say this in a different way. If there were 100 children in a building being tortured, wouldn't it be ridiculously weird if the media refused to talk about it? Wouldn't it be disgusting if 100 children a year were suffering some sort of terrible threat, and I'm using soft language for the purpose of these platforms, and if the media simply refused to talk about it? Now, to me, it's not that it doesn't matter whether it's 1,000 or 100,000 or a million or 100 million. The fact that it's happening is not okay, and the fact that it's happening in massive quantities is not okay. But specifically the fact that our elected officials and our media, among others, are simply not talking about it is not okay. So people like to split hairs over the exact numbers, and the sad reality is that no one knows the exact numbers because most of this is not reported. So realize that the statistics are based on what's reported, which is barely scratching the tip of the iceberg in this criminal industry. For example, the tens of thousands of children we were never rescued or reported. So there are many instances like that that are completely lost on the public. But that being said, the irony here is that there is a group of people that do believe that just because they don't see it, it's not real. Now, to unpack this further, child trafficking, to quantify this, we're talking about the sale and exploitation of children. Now, there are many forms of trafficking. We're specifically talking about child sex trafficking. That industry in our country generates an estimate based on statistics, which is based on what's reported, which is barely scratching the tip of the iceberg. It generates at least $50 billion every year in the USA. That is more annual revenue than all professional sports combined. All the merchandise, the games, the advertisements, those things you see in the sports bars, on everybody's merchandise, you see so it's real. Imagine if you never saw sports, but it generated at least $50 billion a year. People might think it's a theory, and right, that's one very oversimplified explanation of why awareness matters. Like I said earlier, it reduces the predator's ability to operate, but it also removes people from the way too comfortable current position of thinking this is a theory, of thinking we're just overreacting, or of just being too caught up with our busy lives to really put attention towards it. If the masses knew the extent to which children are being exploited and the extent to which people are profiting from their exploitation, I think we would vote and act very differently in our society. I think we would hold our elected officials accountable in a much stronger way. Do you agree?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Part of this awareness is showing it to people. Now, when you delight and entertain people in the form of a film or a movie, you may sometimes reach people that wouldn't otherwise be reached because not a lot of people want to be informed or want to face the reality of this darkness, but people may be more inclined to watch an entertaining film. So, again, just to unpack this for those who may not be aware of the impact or the value of a film, something they think is just entertainment, if it gets people to think about this, if it gets them to really want to know more, then that serves a very important purpose. It also draws a line in the sand. And maybe not all the behind the scenes is, people may not be aware of what people like you go through, Ben, to even get this movie to market.
Mm.
But the intentional opposition along the way, I would venture to say it's much more difficult to do a film like this about protecting children than it is about almost any other topic. Would
Yep.
you agree?
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yeah, there's definitely other projects that we put on the wayside just to focus on making sure that this gets made, that we're you know already pretty much an in to make. And but when it comes to film, I really only want to do stories that mean something, that are important to me. And for me to put this on the back burner would just not be an option when I know, when I had that dream, I started thinking what it must be like for children at night when you're in that situation, and when you're um there's no such thing as a good night. There's no such thing as uh peace, or really your whole existence is a nightmare. And for me to not do something about that, um just wasn't an option. To spend another night without fighting for that would, it just it just is too heavy on our heart not to do something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
1000%. I don't even mean to come across as intimidating to people. It's just that I've seen too much and I know too
Yeah.
much. I do interact with individuals, and especially fully grown men and women who are otherwise capable of not being afraid of the dark, to put it that way,
Mhm. Yeah.
who are unwilling to face this reality because it's simply too disgusting for them to comprehend. And while I have
Right.
empathy for people trying to wrap their head around something that is so evil and psychotic, I understand that that's a lot to comprehend. And if you're not evil or psychotic, it will never compute. So,
Right.
where we're getting at here is that, in my opinion, it is not acceptable, though, for us adults to be unwilling to face the reality of what a child is experiencing. Let me say that a different way. For us as adults to be unwilling to think about what a child is experiencing every day of their life, to me, that type of fear is unacceptable,
Yeah.
partially because we should do better. And also because, to your point, those children don't have a voice or an advocate
Mm-mm.
or another option. It is, I would dare say, impossible for a child to outsmart and overpower the types of forces that they're up against. So,
Yeah.
the way I look at it, if we don't step up, who will? If not us, then who?
Yeah. Yeah. And people want to push it onto someone else. I can't think about that. That's not something I really feel called to. It's like, well, the children aren't feeling called to it either. And when it's at this scale, you don't really have a choice but to face it. And I don't blame people, because the whole world is run in this way to where it's not talked about, to where it's it's not even acknowledged. And that is the power that, it's not going to be one movie, it's not going to be one thing that does it, but it's but these types of things, stories and films and music, these have the powers to turn the tides in culture
Yeah.
and to create a wave of change. And if you're able to touch people's hearts first with a story, with a film that is really good and is really engaging and is riveting, and just extremely well made, then people will go and see a good movie and they'll care about the characters when they realize that the reality of the characters are going through is something that they could do something about. I believe that that's going to have a big impact.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love it. So tell us more about this film. You mentioned it's an independent film. So I'm assuming you guys need support, you need funding. Where can people find it and watch it, and how can they support?
Yeah. So right now we're launching a raise for this film, moderately needing around 1.5 million to complete the film. Um, and as we head towards that goal, we are going to be planning on shooting it within the next 3 to 4 months. Everything else in regards to the production has already been set up. The locations are locked. The crew is accounted for. But the reality is that it takes money to tell a story, and to tell a story that's going to be at a caliber to where it actually makes an impact and a change. And so we have to pay people for their services, and to get the right people and the people that are the best at their job, that's going to require money. And to tell it, with the cameras and all of the tools that it takes to music to put together an amazing film, it takes money. And so yeah, we're putting it into the people's hands that care, the people that are listening here, the people that are paying attention and that want others to pay attention. And so 1.5 is the goal, but if we fall short of that, we are going to make sure that we're able to put this story forward, and if we exceed that, we're going to make it even more amazing. And so people could find us at dreamfilm.us, where they could see the short teaser, the message for me as well as when it comes to the dream, and give and support and build this dream. And also, we do have some producers attached from the executive level, partnering with our story, letting us really use their name. They're willing to put their name on it, and back it in that way. And one of them being Michael Flaherty, who he's a producer of films like I Can Only Imagine, The Chronicles of Narnia, Everest, Holes, and just recently Pastor Samuel Rodriguez is came on board to help us, and he just did the Flamin' Hot film and Breakthrough. And so there's just amazing people within this industry that we know but they're not always the people with the money. And so if we had 20,000, 30,000 people give 60, $50, we would be rocking and rolling. And so I just know that everyone can play a part, no matter how big, how small, and every little bit counts. And so, yeah, the site again is dreamfilm.us. And I know you said earlier on here about screen share, but I'm doing it on my phone, so I'm not sure if it allows for the screen share. But I'll send you an email right now with the link if maybe you want to share it on your screen.
Okay, let's see if we can do that. So it's dreamfilm.us, and people can watch the trailer there. Is that right?
Correct. Yes. So you can watch the trailer and a message for me. It's actually a little bit more of like a conceptual footage. It's around 7 minutes, so it is it's sort of like its own little story, short film. But it goes by fairly quickly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'll see if I can share it here. I have not used that filter. Let me do a little test here. Well, for those who are listening, if you go to dreamfilm.us, you can see the trailer. Extra camera. Oh, I can share screen. Let me try this, and we'll the two monitors. Let's see if this will work, but I'm not 100% sure.
We'll give it a shot.
Are you able to see this?
Yeah. You just probably want to click the right hand maximize button.
Wake up, sleepyhead.
What's up? What's the deal?
Turned off my favorite song.
Your favorite song? What song's that? This one? You want to drive? The driver gets to pick the radio. So if you want to drive, do you have your license?
Yeah.
Come on. So you ready? Huh? Ready to rumble?
Ready to rumble.
Yeah. Hot dog? What do you want, popcorn too, or? Dude, I don't even think Kyle Cunningham's showing up.
Got this? Get a hot dog.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah, I got it. Here, hey.
Who's paying? Okay. Mike, where's Jamie?
You mean, where's Jamie? I thought she was with you. She got up and she followed you. She's not with you? My little sister went missing. She's been missing for like 30 minutes. Hey, someone needs to get on the intercom and tell them that a girl's been missing.
God. Is this how you're gonna leave me? Give me something. Give me something. I had a dream last night. What about? I I was standing at the gate of this old warehouse. This guy pulls up in a truck. He gets out. He's staring at me like he wants to kill me. He says, "You never should have came here." You think it's about her? I don't know.
Bray, you're talking about a dream that you had.
No. I know what I saw. This is real.
You think God sent you a dream to go break into a warehouse? That's what you're trying to tell me. She could be in there. Someone's in there.
What if it wasn't just a dream? I'd do something about it.
Cut it there.
You've just seen a short.
You can watch the rest of that
Amazing.
on their own time.
Yeah. Is that something they can watch on your website? The actual trailer?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you guys for watching and for sharing. Please do help share this message. As we've been talking about throughout this film, it's very difficult to get messages like these past the gatekeepers, if you will. There's a lot of people that don't want to see us talking about protecting children or raising awareness about child trafficking in America. We all know why. We all know that it competes with their interest in a sentence. And we know there's a lot of people that want to silence us. We're not going to stop talking, and we're definitely not going to get quieter. But we do rely on people that can help us spread this message, that can help support these types of projects, that can help raise awareness. It really does matter. So something as simple as sharing this to your social media, something as simple as supporting and donating if you can, tell a friend, send it to them in a message. It all matters, and it does really help ignite this movement. I say this often, but a lot of people, again, they're too scared to face this. And once again, we're not asking people to be there on the front lines, kicking down doors and getting bad guys and putting them behind bars like we are. We are asking you to find a way to support. I truly believe that silence is compliance, meaning if you're not able, not aware, don't have the courage to even speak about this, it's really not part of the problem, and it's definitely not helping children. So I want to challenge everyone who's watching today and everyone who's going to watch this later to please find one thing that you can do to help, to support, to get this word out. It can be something as simple and as free as pressing the share button and sending this message to people who need to read it.
Yeah. Our goal is to get this word out there, and we're going to do that. We're going to get this word out there, and I do believe that there's a shift that's going to take place in this country and in our world, that where people aren't going to stand for this, and that people are going to make a difference. I'm not saying that it's going to happen overnight. I'm not saying that we're going to eradicate this in our generation, because this is an evil that's gone on throughout all of existence. But I do believe that enough is enough for those that care, and it's not going to be what's going on in the world that we're judged for. Is going to be what we choose to do with what's right in front of us. And I just thank you guys for your platform and the work that you guys are doing, and I applaud you.
Absolutely. Thank you. And likewise. And thank you for standing with us, not only in supporting our organization and the message by also doing what you're doing to spread awareness and assist, but thank you for leading by example, not only with this project, but also with your overall mission and your passion for this. It matters. I say this often as well, that, there's a lot of grown adults that are essentially afraid of the dark and unwilling to face this. Here's a little secret about darkness, and I'm going to be a little bit metaphorical here, but I hope y'all pick this up. Darkness is simply the absence of light. So you can create an environment for darkness to thrive, but the moment it's interfaced with light, darkness is simply not a thing. So the way this works is that the way to eradicate darkness is to overpower it with light. Meaning, instead of standing in the corner being afraid of the dark, turn the lights up. What we all should be doing and what we must do is stand together united and ignited to light a fire that burns so brightly that this darkness cannot exist. I promise you, I've seen it, I've overcome it, I'm here to expose it, but evil is a pathetic coward. It is pathetic, it's laughable how cowardly it is, and the fact that people are still afraid of it. If you've seen the movie The Wizard of Oz, when they peel back the curtain and there's some pathetic old man pretending to be something they're not, that's what evil is. So let's stop fearing it, and especially for Christians or for anyone of faith who believes that greater are you than the evil that is in the world, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. And if God be for us, who can be against us? Let's stand up and act like it. Let's stop acting like the darkness is scary or like we should cower in fear and allow children to face this darkness for us. Let's stand together and create a light that overpowers this darkness. Y'all with me?
Amen. Amen. Yeah. And like I've heard it said once before, no one ever asks who turned the darkness up. It's who turned the lights off.
1000%.
And
Darkness
we are the light.
is not overpowering it.
Yeah. That's what we are here for, created for, to be heroes. And that's what this story is about. And that's what your guys' mission is about, is being heroes. And that's what we're alive for, is to be rescuing people in whatever way you can. And to be lifting each other up and bringing light into the evil that's right in front of us. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for being the light, and thank you for shining the light brightly with your projects. Definitely
nice to meet you, Kim.
Thank you. Likewise. Thank you again for being here, and we look forward to seeing more about your film. Please follow Ben and the film. Please support if you can do anything, if you can share this message. I challenge you all to pick one thing you can do to be part of the solution, and do it in the next 24 hours. Let's take action. Let's not just be aware, but let's take action. We can absolutely stand together and overpower this darkness. So thank you again, everyone, for watching. We will see you all soon. Make sure to follow, and thank you for supporting. You guys have a great evening.
Thank you.